started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hockey Podcast. We're you can follow us, of course, on Twitter at podcast_hockey. Of course, live on Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast, where we sit at the 100 and Martin Straka of subscribers. And of course, you can subscribe to the audio shortly after this. Just me flying solo today, as Devin not available to recap the Calgary Flames losing their first back-to-back regulation losses this year, as they fought the Montreal Canadiens 4-2. And I would have to probably say that this was the worst game of the Flames season so far. Overall, it just didn't really have it. When you compare to San Jose, the first and the third were certainly a little bit more of a struggle than the second in San Jose when they played San Jose. And here it was more all three periods they had some stumbles. They never really got on their footing, and it was a loss. So the road winning streak for the Flames ends at 5. We'll just go through the summary here as... Just one moment. There we go. Okay. Backlund scored very early. He's served from Lewis and Jolene. New lines tonight. So the only line that they kept together was the Lindholm, Kachuk, and Gaudreau line. And I'll get to that line in a second. But it was Monahan, Dubé. It's Monahan, Coleman, Mangiapane. It was Backlund with Lewis and Dubé. And then Pitlick, Lewis, and someone else I forgot. I'll get through that in my head. Just drawing a little bit of a blank here. But anyway, there were line changes tonight. Dubé moved from center to wing. Brad Richardson moved from wing to center. He was on the fourth line. It was Richard, that line. And let me just finish with the summary here, then I'll go through. Ben Sherratt tied it at 9:25. His fourth to Foley and Suzuki. And then Andre Mangiapane, you're going to see this goal on highlight reels. Was a great goal, great effort by Andre Mangiapane. He just does this all the time. But his ninth, 8 on the road for Andrew Mangiapane from Monahan and Coleman. The Flames went into the first intermission up 2-1. And then Brendan Gallagher scored to tie the game on a power play goal, 11:24. There was a bit of a ruckus after that. Some are arguing Gallagher had a little bit of a kick. Gabranson laid a lot of lumber on him. It created a little bit of a mess. And Toffoli and everyone got involved. Had some 4-on-4. But the second period, second intermission, tied at 2. And then in the third period, Nick Suzuki, he scored a really nice goal. That was his fourth. And quite frankly, he was the best player on the ice for both teams tonight. From Mike Hoffman on the power play, made it 3-2. And then Jake Evans scored in the empty net to make it 4-2. And that was the game. Shots on goal and were 28-26 favoring the Habs over the Flames. Flames only had 6 shots on goal in the third period. And it's becoming a little bit of a habit here this week that the Sharks, against the Sharks, they didn't have a really strong, they were tied down a little bit in the third period as well as today. tied down a bit in the third period as well. So that's starting to be a little bit of a concern. But just one moment here. But overall, overall, this game was not the Flames' best game of the year. This was probably one of their worst. They just didn't have it. Like the Sharks, the Canadians outworked them. The Flames do not have the Connor McDavids or those elite players that can just turn a game on a dime. They have to work for it, and they did not tonight. Not everyone was on the same train. I thought that this was probably one of Blake Coleman's worst games. There was a couple of giveaways that he would like to have back that were un-Coleman of him. I thought, and sorry. Here, give me a quick second. I'm doing everything here. There we go. And I didn't think the first line specifically in terms of forwards. I thought the Backlund line was fine. I thought the Monahan line was fine, but Lindholm, Gaudreau, and Tkachuk just didn't seem too on tonight to me. Lindholm has been a little quiet the last couple of games, and not sure what's going on there, but that line does need to drive the play more for the Flames if the Flames are going to get anywhere. Defensively, I've been praising as much as you can praise Eric Gudbranson. I think Gudbranson's been good. This was probably one of not his best game either. And Markstrom has struggled a little bit as well. I thought he was okay today. I didn't think that there was a goal that he drastically should have had per se, but he also, I just think that it was him and the entire team were sort of just a touch behind the Calgary or the Montreal Canadiens today. But they go back at it tomorrow in Toronto. I would suspect for sure we're going to get Dan Vladar there. A lot of people ask why Vladar not playing against Montreal. Well, Markstrom has a 4-7-1 record against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So probably in terms of numbers, it was an easier, probably mathematically a bit easier to put him in against Montreal against points that you need and you didn't get. And I think a bit, again, way early in the season to mathematically clinch or eliminate playoffs. But these last two games are probably points that you need to have from San Jose and Montreal. But again, you have a 5-game home road winning streak, and you had 10 straight games with points. So you do have some points in your back pocket that helps, but you do want to get back on the winning ways as soon as possible here. For the Habs, just hardworking. I just can't tell you how I continue to be impressed with Nick Suzuki. That was a great trade with the Vegas Golden Knights to acquire Nick Suzuki. And I'm not sure where he is on the Canadian Olympic discussion, but I think if you were going to have Andrew Mangiapane be in that discussion, which is fair game, I'm all okay with it. I think Nick Suzuki should deserve a little bit of a look there too. Just a dynamic center. Not saying he should make it, but if the Habs may not be this great team, but they do have an elite center, in my opinion, in Nick Suzuki. Petrie and Sherratt were outstanding in shutting things down. Jake Evans is a guy that not a lot of people talk about in Montreal. Philip Deneau went to Los Angeles, and a lot of people thought that hole would be tough to fill, and Jake Evans has filled it. And Jake Allen, I thought, was really strong for Montreal. So just looking through the ice time here, and then we'll get to just touch on some other news quickly of the day here. For the Flames, only 1 point from defense. And again, it's Oliver Shillington. He continues to be one of the better defensemen. But 3 shots on goal, 1 assist. Him and Tanev, I thought, were the best pairing of defense tonight. Mangiapane, 2 shots on goal. Lindholm, 1 shot on goal, no points, -1. Tkachuk, 1 shot on goal, -1. Johnny Gaudreau, -1. 3 shots on goal. He was a bit more active. There was a play late in the game there with Tkachuk that he, not sure what he was doing, but he passed it when I felt he should have shot there, and when the empty net happened, but that just didn't happen. Monahan, for the record, got his first regular even strength point today. So for the Canadians, just looking there, Gallagher and Suzuki, goal and assist, 2 points. Gallagher, 2 shots on goal. Suzuki, 5 shots on goal. Mike Hoffman had 5 shots on goal. Jake Evans didn't have a 1 shot on goal, but 4 hits. He played 16-24. Ben Sherratt had a great game. I thought he was really strong. He had a goal, 22-41. Petrie, 23-25. And Jake Allen made 24 saves today. So overall, it's the Flames. You don't want to have these slumps last for too long. It's a big game tomorrow in Toronto. You want to get back on the roll there, and it's going to be tough. You've got the core four, as they're calling it in Toronto, with Marner and Matthews and Tavares and Nylander, and they're all playing well, and they're wanting to get chip in from everyone else too, and they're starting to feel a little bit more confident. It's certainly not the same Toronto that we were talking about earlier in the year. They're on a roll and feeling confident, so it's going to be a tough game, and Vladar is going to have to play well, and the Flames are going to have to play well as well. But we will be recapping that game tomorrow, and we'll look at that there. Devin should be back with me tomorrow, and hopefully we'll have another guest as well join us. A couple of other things I just wanted to touch on here. We'll get to the news of the day. By the way, in Denver, Colorado, just to keep you up to date on what's going on there, it was 3-0 as we headed to the first intermission. It is currently, for Colorado, it is currently halfway through the second, still 3-0. It's a road trip from Vancouver, just to touch on them a little bit, that you certainly need to get 3 of 6 points out of this if you can. You did not have a 2-4-1 homestand is not great. And you want to get some point. You need points here. You've got a very hot Kings team. The Sharks are losing, but that's been rare for them. Vegas is in playing Minnesota, and Anaheim is playing Seattle, and the Oilers won again, 5-3. So points need to happen for the Canucks, and that penalty kill is still continuing to be an issue in Vancouver as well. So don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens this weekend here. I think that's the one place you sort of, in big picture, might have my eye on a little bit here. But just in terms of, I'll have an eye on, but wonder, I think at least you've got to at least try to get a split out of there. 2 you may be okay with, but you got to try to get at least 3 points out of this road trip for sure. So a few other news and notes here we'll just touch on here. The Flames play Ottawa on Sunday, and they have 9 players now in COVID protocol, the Senators do. That's including assistant coach Jack Capuano. He is also on that list, but Nikita Zaitsev was handled, and on that, defenseman Josh Brown, Victor Mete, Nick Holdman, forwards Austin Watson, Connor Brown, and Dylan Gambro. And well as Matt Murray, Alex Fermenton, Nikita Zaitsev. Sorry, so that's 9 for Ottawa. There was a bit of a talk today if there was going to be a game tonight, if they were going to cancel or not. Ironically, I think it was Ottawa and Los Angeles. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. That was one of the last games played before COVID shut everything down in 2020. So that was interesting there. Some other things going on. The Avs, this was from yesterday, but the Avs are playing without Nathan McKinnon. He'll be out for 3 weeks he's out with an injury. It is a lower body injury, but one of those guys. I know we talk about Connor McDavid so much, but Nathan McKinnon, great player as well, and the Avs will miss him. They're not off to a great start, but I mean, obviously up today, 3-0 against the Canucks. We've also got the Tony D'Angelo was fined $2,000 for diving. He's been an interesting case in Carolina. Looks like he's been playing okay there. Rick Nash will have his number 61 retired by the Columbus Blue Jackets. Yes, the Columbus Blue Jackets are retiring a number. We're a little older now, and it's Rick Nash. Yes, Rick Nash. That Rick Nash is 61. Be interested to see when he gets into the Hall of Fame. I'm very curious about when that happens. Is he a Hall? I think by the NHL hockey criteria, he is in the Hall of Fame. That should be happening, I would think, fairly as soon for Rick Nash on that. And the one other story, just to keep you updated, I'll read this again from Rick Westhead involving the Chicago Blackhawks here. It's just one of those it's a frustrating situation and here in Chicago, but just we'll read again a tweet from Rick Westhead. A lawyer for the Chicago Blackhawks today wrote to Kyle Beach's attorney to say the team is refusing to make a settlement offer because the sides have very different views of what would constitute a fair resolution of the lawsuit. The NHL wants to retain a mediator. In a second letter, this is also significant regarding John Doe 2, which is the player from the 16-year-old that was impacted by all of this. The Blackhawks attorney wrote that while the team will provide therapy for him, the team wants to review his medical records, school transcripts, and income records before he can understand how the assault by Brad Aldrich had impacted his life. I'm going to read that again to just let this sink in. In a second letter regarding John Doe 2, the Blackhawks attorney wrote that while the team will provide therapy for him, the team wants to review his medical records, school transcripts, and income records before it can understand how the assault by Brad Aldrich has impacted his life. I just feel it's gross. To me, I understand, again, we're dealing with legalese and lawyers. It just feels so, doesn't it feel just so inhuman? Just you want some adult in this room come in and just show some empathy and compassion. Well, Westhead goes on to tweet, while a Blackhawks lawyer with the NHL team would pay for therapy for JD2 related to the assault, and I'm just directly quoting Westhead's tweets here, it should not be construed as an admission of fault or responsibility. Excuse me. As an admission of fault or responsibility for JT2's injuries, the Blackhawks sympathize with JT2 on a human level, the team's lawyer wrote. Yeah, it's just not good. Another not good situation there as well. The other thing I just wanted to touch on, John Tortorella made an interesting comment today that has stirred the hockey world up, and I wanted to chime in with a little bit of opinion, because he said that Connor McDavid needed to change his game, and a number of people were offended by this notion from a guy that has been to a Stanley Cup ring, brought the Columbus, swept the. If you remember, a couple of years ago, he was the coach that Columbus swept Toronto or Tampa Bay a few years ago in the playoffs. That dominant Tampa Bay team, a guy that knows the game really well, whether you like him or not. He knows the game, and this is one of those things that I would have to agree with John Tortorella, that Connor McDavid needs to change his game a little bit. And what I think this is one of those things that Twitter is overreacting to. So let me tell you what I think, and what he's trying to say. Because one of the things he said, let me get a drink of water here. He said, change a bit, not drastically change his game, change a bit. And every great player has done it. Gretzky did it over the years. You watch Mario Lemieux, he did it. Joe Sakic did it. Steve Yzerman did it. Crosby did it. Ovechkin did it. There's something subtle that they needed to do to change their game to help them win a Stanley Cup. It's no different. Austin Matthews probably will need to do this as well a little bit. All great players need, and it's just, it could be anything. I mean, maybe McDavid, for all the abuse that he takes, and no dispute that he takes a lot of abuse, but how can you blame teams? They're not going to stand there and watch him 1-on-4 just blow through so to score. You've got to do something to stop this guy. Maybe he needs to start throwing a couple of punches. Maybe he needs to start, being a little bit chippier. And he doesn't have to be super chippy, but maybe that would help a little bit. Maybe, this may be drastic, but wouldn't it be interesting if Connor McDavid got into a fight? Crosby got into a fight a few years ago. Maybe Connor needs to. I wonder what people think of that when I say that Connor McDavid needs to get into a fight. Obviously, you want to be careful with that. I'm not saying he needs to throw down all the time, but maybe he needs to push back a little bit. When you look at Wayne Gretzky back in the day, back when Gretzky was at the top of his game, he had Dave Semenko riding on his left side there a lot of the time. So a lot of teams would not take the liberties that they would with Connor McDavid now. And I'm not saying that we need to go back to that old era, but what I am saying is I think that sometimes maybe instead of the complaining to the refs, McDavid pushes back a couple of times a little bit. That may be one way that he can adjust his game a little bit. Nobody is disputing Connor McDavid is the greatest player in the game, but sometimes you always need to adjust and improve, and he is a guy that clearly has done that over the years. So I don't think that Torts is wrong. You can find the clip. It's on Twitter there, but I don't think Torts is wrong, but other people disagree. Let us know what you think. We will leave it there for now. We'll be back tomorrow. We have a couple comments here. Yeah. I don't know who this is. Anyway, not sure who that was. Anyway, we'll leave it there. We can follow us on Twitter, podcast_hockey, facebook.com, the hockey podcast, youtube.com, the hockey podcast. We'll be back. We will do a recap tomorrow of the Flames and Maple Leafs. Expect Devin to join. Well, I may have another guest, but we'll talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.